to understand who he is and understand why it is that he's seeking this information. Okay? So, in terms of self-awareness, when you self-reflect, when you look at yourself, when you really look at yourself, analyze yourself, you start to become more aware of who you are. Okay? That awareness is scary to most people, many people. Because of that, most people do not even start the process. They're afraid to start the process. So if you look at so later on we're going to look at my 4 pillars model just briefly, right? Because it's online and you can look at it later. So, but when you look at that model, it shows you, again, it's another way to do the whole thing that I did with the sword and shield model, to kind of see where you fall, who you are, where you fall on this model, where other people may fall, right? And the reason why people get older, and you have people in their 27, 37, 40s plus, right? But they're still acting like 10, 12, 15 years younger developmentally than they are chronologically, right? The reason is because we develop in 4 pillars: spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. The physical happens. You're going to get older, right? You're going to grow up. But that's why you can have a 20-plus-year-old person physically, but up here, they're back there. You know what I'm saying? So developmentally or emotionally, again, go back to sword and shield. You get hurt. You have some sort of trauma emotionally. You're going to want to protect yourself. That protection, you put on armor, you have slowed down your development. That's what the path is. The path is the development towards your purpose in life. Purpose to promise. That path will get you there faster if you don't allow fear and pain to slow you down. Okay? So, these are the things, and it's perfectly fine. Everybody needs a breather. Even a sword and shield person has to take a knee sometimes, right? But as long as you get back up, you know what I mean? And as long as you don't have too many times where you slow yourself down with armor, or definitely not start castling and walling up, okay? So people don't start this process because they tend to be afraid of what they might find. Where? In themselves. Carl Jung, one of my favorite theorists in psychology, he says, he calls this process, or the other side of what you would be looking at, as he calls it the shadow. So what he says about the shadow is that the shadow keeps you basically from looking at yourself, because a lot of people are afraid that the shadow in themselves will embody things that they don't want to see is there. And they might have an inkling that it's there. You know what I mean? Like you really feel, and everybody says you're a good person, you think you're a good person, but you know deep down, right, you have the capability to jack some people up, especially if they rub you the wrong way, right? Some of us, capability to kill. If you make us angry enough, real talk, right? I'm Dr. Pulley. But I teach anger management at Northeastern, at my agency where I work. I teach anger management. They chose me because some of them knew my past, right? And we'll get into that difference of your purpose and how people perceive your past versus where you are now, right? But some of the reasons why some of us teach some of these things is because we've been through it, right? Now, luckily for me, I was never afraid to look at myself. Right? But that's the other thing. Self-reflection is just step 1. After you become aware, first you got to look at yourself and analyze yourself. Then you become aware, right? After you become aware, that's when the work starts. So if people are afraid to even start the process because they're afraid of the work of reflecting and afraid of what they'll find, that's why they don't grow. That's why if you're dating, or if you're in, talks with people at church, at school, at work, you can have peers that you're cool with on the surface. You can hang with them as long as you're talking about sports and movies and girls, or women if you're guys, and men if you're women, right? As long as you're keeping it on the surface, y'all cool. You start getting deep, there's a disconnect, right? Because they have not gotten there yet. Because they are afraid or lazy and don't want to go through this process. Sigmund Freud, a lot of people don't like Freud, but he's the father of psychology, or quote unquote. He calls it, instead of calling it the shadow like Carl Jung, he says that it is, people have a fear of looking at their real self versus their ideal self. Okay? So again, who they see themselves to be versus who they really are. Anybody old enough to remember Never Ending Story? Okay, that was one of my favorites. Y'all remember the part where there was that mirror? Y'all remember the gate? There was the second gate. First he had to pass the gate of bravery, right? Sword and shield. Then the second gate was he had to look at himself. It was all it was a mirror. And what the dude was saying was, his little love dragon, that dog dragon, he was like, oh, well, that would be easy for Atreyu, right? My boy Atreyu, right? That would be easy for Atreyu, but the scientist dude, he was saying, no, it's not easy. Because what happens is warriors find out that they're really cowards, right? Men who think they're really men might find out they're a bit effeminate, right? And for these reasons, people, when they find out their real self, they run away screaming, right? Good people who think they're good might see a bit of evil in them. I watched Noah the other day, right? And Noah had an epiphany in that movie, at least. It was a very interesting take on the Bible. Because I was like, the Bible doesn't say all this, but I got to study. I was like, yo, this is an interesting story. So either somebody made up a very wonderful interpretation of what could have happened, or that information could be out there. You got to seek. But anyway, I'm gonna do my research before I go further on that. But in the movie, right, he realized that the evil that he was being saved from, him and his family was being saved from, was in him and his family too, because he was still a son of Adam. And since he was a son of Adam, the sin was in him too. He was doing better, but he realized, and it hurt his heart, but he had to accept his responsibility that he had the capacity for evil. Then he looked at his sons like, Shem is not lustful, but he has his heart for desire. Ham is covetous, right? And what's the other one? Say it again. Jacob. Yeah, he. What did he say? He loves to please, right? And although that one's not that bad, that can lead to some sin, some deep things, right? So again, this process, self-awareness is important. Gotta do all this stuff. So in looking at self-awareness, that leads to knowing who you are through the reflection. You get past the one stage, you get to the point where you have to look at knowing who you are. And once you know who you are, be true to that. Now, that doesn't mean stick with it, right? One of the things that irks me so much when people talk about, well, I am who I am, right? How many people have heard that, especially in their relationships, right? Well, this is who I am, right? Are you trying to change me, right? The bottom line is, yeah. Right? Not always, but to a degree. Here's the thing, folks. What's going on? Oh, okay. I had to change my password. They make you change your password all the time these days. The bottom line is, a relationship is supposed to change you, people. Now, here's a little bias coming out. In almost every one of my ex-relationships, right? So this is what I say, and I gotta be real. This is part of my purpose, right? So ladies, y'all might get mad at me, but we can talk about it. We can discuss it, all right? I have heard so many times, and you all might feel the same way. That's why I have to address this, right? That's why you all, whoever's not a part of Ask a Male Monday, Ask a Woman Wednesday, join that group, right? We have some great discussions. But a lot of women say, oh, no dude, no person should change you. People shouldn't change each other. Boom, boom, boom. That's the purpose of the relationship. You can't two individuals can't become one flesh without change. You can't you can't merge into one unit basically. Two people becoming one unless you do some changing. It just isn't going to happen. So for all those people who say I'm not supposed to change, you shouldn't want to change me, boom, 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 you don't want to be in a relationship. Period. I'm serious about this, ain't I? That's passion. We'll talk about passion in a second. Right? I'm passionate about that. Because you got to think beyond what's all of these cliches. And we'll talk about that when we go to the business portion. There's a lot of cliches, and a lot of them are true, and a lot of them are half true. And the half truth is not the same as hashtag the balanced perspective. We'll talk about that too. Half truths, right, is not the same. The balanced perspective is when two things are equally true. Equally true. And you have to find the what I call what's up the middle, or the balanced perspective, right? The distinguishing factor that's between the two equally true points. There's also stuff that's out there that's only half true, meaning that it's half truth and the other part is nonsense. And you have to use the spirit of discernment, your knowledge, your awareness, your study, the word, so on and so forth, to weed through the nonsense. Okay? So you have to change. That leads us to self-regulation. Okay? Self-regulation is the process of increasing your strengths and decreasing your weaknesses. I have to get somebody's phone. So increasing your strengths and decreasing your weaknesses will get you to the point where just undergoing that process will lead you to growth. Okay? So self-regulation is what you want to get to, because if you make it to the self-regulation portion of your process, then you are really starting to see the change, right? Now in there, you will gain some things. So I'm gonna go back a bit. I didn't have my slides, so I was kind of going. So I'm kind of going. I'm gonna have to jump over some places until I get this thing back up. So when you become self-aware, you gain confidence. Okay? So there's a difference between those who are confident, obviously, right, and those who are not, right? Especially when it comes to relationships. Men who lack confidence tend to get less attention from women, from the fairer sex. It's mainly, if I get back to it, I have in my 4 pillars model, I have the 11 characteristics that men look for in women and that women look for in men. And for the men, confidence is one of the main things. If a dude is confident, he could be ugly, he could be poor, right? The only other one, but even that takes confidence, is if he's funny. But think about it. It takes confidence to be funny, right? Because, you don't want to start saying jokes and then people looking at you like, hey, you need to stop, right? Or if you sing, even if you can't sing, it takes confidence to try. You see what I'm saying? People admire when people have the courage. Thank you. When people have the courage to even try something. So even if they might stink, like I can't sing like Brother Chaz over here. This man can sing. But y'all might like the fact that I might try. Right? If I get up there and it's karaoke, he could blow me out the water, but I could back him up a little bit because, we were both on the choir back in the day. I still got a little bit of something, right? I've been protecting my voice and stuff over these years, right? But I can yin yang a little bit, right? But I would get a lot of encouragement for trying. You see what I'm saying? And so it takes confidence and bravery, and women and men respond to bravery. But interestingly enough, same thing in a reverse. All right? We're drawn to opposites, but we're also drawn to sameness, right? For compatibility. Okay? So in looking at that, you can go different ways with your confidence. Another way we look at it is swag. Just give you a quick history of this swag that we call it, right? Swag is really a term that came from fabric, right? If something sways, it has swag, right? That curtain in your house, when the wind blows, or if you drape it just so, you drape it so that it has swag. Well, how did that get translated over to confidence and what Jay-Z and them be talking about, right? Well, look, when men walk, particularly African American men, we walk with what? A swag. It goes side to side. It does. It's just and there's different. I remember when I started perfecting my walk, because you got to have a walk. Yes. Denzel had a walk. Yes. I said, Dave Pulley got to have a walk. I started with, y'all remember when Biggie and Puffy came out? No, it was Puffy and Mace came out with that "Don't Push Us." That when it was to that beat. Remember when that car blew up and they were walking like this in slow motion? Right? That's where I started my joint. I was like, boom, I'm gonna start with that. I'm gonna throw a little Denzel in there. You know what I mean? And then when I graduated 8th grade, they were like, that boy's walk. Your walk is not only just figurative. There's 4 pillars. Physical is the last pillar, although it's least in priority. It's in there, like ragu, right? The 4th pillar is important. Physical, you need a physical representation of everything in the previous 3 pillars. So if you have confidence mentally, emotionally, it should show, right? So swag comes from that, you know what I mean? And if you can dance, it only adds to that. Now, I can't sing, but I can dance. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the swag comes from really fabric. Then it moved over to the swag bag. Y'all know about the swag bag? It's basically those bags of gifts that they give to all the celebrities. Something don't sound too good. Something we all get, right? That's what something we all get, or some things we all get. So swagger, right? Confidence, how you come across with the things that you. So if you have not developed, you're not going to have a swag, right? So that's just something to consider when thinking about this process of growth. Still struggling here with this thing. Okay. So that's self-awareness and confidence. So once you become more confident, then that confidence only increases when you start to understand your purpose, right? One of the main things that people hate on, right, in this life, and so here's where we're going to start getting a little more real, is when people know, or at least believe that they know, what they are here to do. When people who haven't quite figured that out yet come across people who either have or feel that they have, that's when there starts being some of that disconnect. That's where you start separating your friends from, that friend that you could do certain things with versus that friend that's that roadie, right? Because those who haven't, they can go a couple different ways, okay? Now, what I'm about to go into real quick, again, this is off the top because I didn't have my stuff, but then we're going to get back on track after this. This one's from T.D. Jakes, but I added a little Dr. Pulley in there, okay? So T.D. Jakes also talks about, one of his things that he talks about is your friendships. I'm spending most of today on ourselves, right? Looking at ourselves. But I'm going to show you a bit more about your interactions with others, your friendships, your relationships. All right, so he had your 3 C words, okay? He has your confidant, right? Your comrade, right? And I'm forgetting the third one already. Confidant, comrade, constituent, okay? So a confidant is that person who you can confide in. You can tell your deep secrets to. That's the person who's with you. They're connected to you for you. They're down for you because they're down for you. It doesn't matter what you do. They're going to be with you. That's your roadie, right? Constituent, that's your person who's down for you, but only because they're down for your purpose or your cause. Okay? So these are people that can see your purpose and they're like, yo, that brother, that sister, they got something there, right? And they don't necessarily like you. They're not necessarily down for you. But they like, that brother, that sister, they going somewhere. And I want to get on that train. These are the people that tend to hurt you, right? Because they are your peoples, right? But they're your peoples to a degree, right? These are the people that soon as they find someone that they think can get them there faster or better, they roll. Or they hurt you in some kind of way. They bounce. Constituents. All right? Then you have your comrades. Now, the comrade is interesting too. Comrade hurts you too, but check out the comrade. The comrade is someone who's down for you. Not because they're down for you or your cause, but because y'all two got the same enemy. The same struggle. The same hurdle. So, for example, somebody who says, you know what? You know, these cops, you know, shooting these young black brothers, that's messed up. Let's fight this cause. They don't really like you. They're not really down for how you're doing your cause, but you got the same struggle, the same figurative enemy or real enemy. These are the people that are with you and seem like they're with you because they're fighting side by side with you. Comrade, right? They're fighting side by side with you, but soon as that enemy is defeated, soon as that enemy or struggle is over, now they turn their back on you and tend to be the ones that stab you in the back. The constituents, they could do that, but they just tend to hurt you by leaving. The comrades are the ones that tend to stab you in the back because these are the ones that were fighting alongside you, and as long as you had the same enemy, y'all were cool. Now that you don't have the enemy, guess what? They're probably pretty much your enemy. Because if you both had the same cause, right, then that means both of you have the same, you know, kind of goals, ideals, but they're kind of like your competition and see you as that as well. Now, if you're the person that have them in your circle on some real stuff like, this is my boy, this is my peoples, this is my girl, you know what I mean? We're cool. We've been fighting this, you know what I mean? They've been with me for a minute fighting this. But you got to be careful of the comrades because it's tricky because these are the ones that will learn your secrets while you're fighting. They'll learn your weaknesses. And once that enemy or hurdle or struggle is gone, guess what? They're going to use your weaknesses against you because now you're the competition. Because the previous competition or struggle, whatever that was, you were fighting that together. Now that that's gone, it's pretty, you know what I'm saying? So these are the people you got to be careful of. The one that I added in here, the Dr. Pulley spin on this, I added another one. So I thought about it in terms of soulmates, in terms of relationship, in terms of mate selection. And I said, well, what about the people who are both down for you and your cause? And I said, let's give that one another C word, companion. A companion is someone who has qualities of both the confidant and the constituent. But they don't leave you because they got the confidant quality. So they're down for you and your cause. And the bigger your cause, the more you need a companion because you need somebody who will be there for you and will help you with whatever it is your purpose or calling is and anointing is. Y'all feel me? Okay. All right. We're at about the half mark. I was going straight off the top with most of that. I think I was covering staying online for the most part. What we'll do now is, you know what, we start a little bit late. So I'm going to go about 15 more minutes. Then I'm going to let y'all eat. A couple people going to talk to you all. We have some great people that are going to talk to you about some political aspects of the community, some business, looking at business and entrepreneurship. And they want to do some presentation after you all get your food, okay? So about 15 more minutes. I'm going to try to catch up on this slide presentation. That video messed me up, so I might not show any more any more videos. All right. So real quick, for those who haven't heard of it yet, this is the infamous 4 pillars model. Okay. Everything we just talked about can be summed up in this model right here. Okay. Now, because I'm from Philly, I used Philly terms, so please don't be offended. I don't think I have a woman on there, but when a woman on a left path, right, is joined, but that's only to represent, right, the fact that there's a left path to this thing. Okay, so in religion, there are 2 descriptions of all the religions that exist: your right path religions and your left path religions. Okay, I took basically right path religions: Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. There's a whole list. You can look that up. Left path that has a whole list as well. Okay, I took that and put it into development as well, right? And so for me, the right path was gentleness, right? Development. Those who are into spiritual development, self-awareness, all the things that we kind of talked about, right? Then you have your left path folks. They're more into the physical, like aggressiveness, protection. Really, it's about survival. It's about survival, right? So a bit more protective oriented, so on and so forth. If you look at their 4 pillars, theirs is physical, then mental, then emotional, then spiritual, for those who can see that. All right. With that orientation, again, pros and cons. Pros being these are people that tend to be more assertive. They don't take no mess, right? These are the people that tend to have that confidence. Why? If you've been through some struggles, right? You've been through some battles, you've been fighting some things, going through some hurdles, you're going to have a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of swag, right? School of hard knocks, street knowledge, so on and so forth. When I moved from inner city Philly to first to Yaden and then way out to the sticks to Collegeville, right? When I moved out to Collegeville, there was a noticeable difference, right, in maturity. Now that would seem weird because amongst our own, when we look at some of the young boys, pants sagging and all that, there is a certain amount of immaturity just from age. But in comparison to what's called sheltered, being sheltered, when you're sheltered, it's a different swag, right? It's a different presentation. Your whole, when you haven't been exposed to, and I'm not advocating for, because some of these kids are exposed to way too much too soon, right? But it forces you to grow up. It does. I just felt like my classmates were younger than me by at least a year and a half, 2 years. Because they hadn't been through what I've been through. And to a degree, I felt, I guess, a little jealous of that. Like, dang, like you had it pretty good, pretty easy, right? But then I also appreciated the fact that it had developed my character. It had developed me a bit to where I could even notice this difference in my peers. You see what I'm saying? So the left path, there is pros to it, right? As opposed to, and there's pros and cons to everything. But then you have the centered path, what I call the centered path. And if you look at the 4 pillars, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, that should be your proper priority order for these stages of growth that we've been talking about. When you're self-reflecting and then becoming more aware, when you get to the stage of self-regulation, in addition to increasing your strengths and decreasing your weaknesses, you want to be putting your 4 pillars in their proper priority order. Spiritual comes first, right? When we look at the word in Genesis, everything started in where? The spirit. God thought, and it wasn't a mental thinking because he's a spiritual being, but he had an idea. The spiritual notion for the spiritual word or the figurative word, right, for mental thought is an idea. Back in, remember the cartoons when somebody got a bright idea, they got a light bulb, right? Well, think of the light bulb, like it would pop up over there, right? Think of that light bulb as the Holy Spirit. It was basically kind of representing. So whenever you see that from there, Dr. Pulley said, right? You see that light bulb ding? That's the Holy Spirit, right? They're not going to call it the Holy Spirit, but that's basically what it is. When you get a good idea, an idea that's new, something pops in your head, you never thought about it before, you just, boom, you got that, right? It's angelic, right? That moment is because God put something in your spirit. So that's because really it was angelic, right? And it came to you in the spirit. And so then you start thinking about it with your mind, right? About this idea you got in the spirit. All things start in the spirit. My business, this program today, I was in the shower. Too much information, right? Well, look, water is important. For those who, I'm big into movies, you're going to hear a lot of movie references. The Adjustment Bureau, right? And people seen it? Okay. For those who have, or if you think about most movies, most books, right? The dude M. Night Shyamalan, if you think about most of his scary, quote unquote scary movies, they're not all scary. They're kind of, some of them psycho thrillers, right? His main weakness to the people's characters in those movies is water. He's drawing from an age-old principle that we are born of two things. That rebirth that Jesus talks about, when we get baptized, we're being born of water. We are 70% water. These are not coincidences. Okay? Water is very important. Water blocks out disruption to your spiritual connection to God. So, from now on, you might start paying attention too when you're in the shower, right? Or when you're around water, when you're near, swimming, when you're at the ocean, right? There's a certain peace and calmness that comes over your spirit, right? Even if you're going through something. You'll also maybe start to notice that you tend to get ideas, right? So water is very important. It's like a conduit to the spiritual realm, okay? So even this came from that. So pay attention to when you're around water. Pay attention to the ideas you get. Ideas are different than your thoughts. Your thoughts come next. That's the mental portion. In psychology, one of the things that I'm doing, I teach at PCOM, and I'm going to start teaching at my alma mater, Chestnut Hill, this summer. And one of the things that I'm trying to get to do is get the field of psychology to acknowledge the realm of the spirit more. Because we can't be as effective as psychologists, as psychotherapists, without paying attention to the spiritual realm, period. It's one of the four pillars, whether you believe in it or not. You don't have to believe in air to be breathing it. You know what I'm saying? And for those who, you cannot, psychology even has this saying, you cannot perceive 100% of the things that you don't attend to. That's tweetable. Hashtag purpose to promise. Right? For those who came in later, the official hashtag is hashtag purpose to promise. You hear a tweetable comment, post, hashtag purpose to promise. You can put up the soulmate specialist if you want. But you cannot perceive 100% of the things that you don't attend to. So if you're not paying attention, if something's going on behind me, can I have a perception of it? No. Can I have a concept of it, a conceptualization of something that I cannot see and therefore I'm not paying attention to? No, I cannot. Unless I have developed my spiritual sense where I have and I'm continuing to do so. But unless I've gotten my sixth sense, and there is a sixth sense, it's not just a movie, right? Where the spirit of discernment that happened earlier, right? Right? Can let you know something's going on, but you have to really develop to know that in depth. But that's possible. These things aren't just mythical and magical. These things are real. Jesus said that we can do all that he did and more. And if you have faith in what he said in that word, we can. I'm looking to be a water walker at some point. I'm looking to do some floating at some point. Yeah. But that means I have to keep on the same thing that I'm sharing with y'all. Why am I sharing it with y'all? Because I'm on it. I'm doing it. So part of my purpose that he's given me is to share with Share what he's got me going through with him, with y'all, right? And I can do more than I could last year, 2 years ago. I'm getting stronger on this thing. I'm perceiving things even better. That thing, and I'll tell you on a personal thing later what I'm pointing at and what happened. But that was discernment. She didn't say anything to me. I kind of felt. I felt it. And we used the word feel, but I didn't. It was no feeling, like really, like it was no touch feeling. But we say feel because it's somewhere in between emotion, mental, and that stuff that we can't quite put words to. Is the spirit. All right. So spiritual, then mental, then emotional, then physical. If you don't have this priority order, you are out of order. And if you're out of order, what happens? You go to a soda machine, it's out of order. You go to the ATM, it's out of order. You ain't going to get out of it what you expect to, are you? If you want a soda and that machine got a sign on it that says out of order, you ain't going to get your soda. Or you're going to get the wrong one, right? If the ATM says out of order, you better not use that junk, right? Because it might take your card. And this is I'm joking about it, but transfer this over to real life. You deal with somebody who's out of order, they're going to take something from you, not give you what you expect, or you're going to get something out of them that you didn't think you were going to or you didn't expect to, because that's not what you bought into it for. You wanted a spring. Out popped out a Coke. Or nothing popped out at all and it took your what? Money. People take your money. Relationships, I know y'all connect with this. Relationships take your money because you're supposed to invest in it. But if you're investing in someone who's out of order, they're going to take your money and you're not going to get a return on your investment. Now we're starting to talk business. See how this stuff is connected? Biblically, the system of exchange, tithing, 10%, all of this stuff is biblical, conceptual, and relates not only to business, not only to spiritual stuff, but your relationships. Right there on time. I'm going to pause right there. We're going to pick back up at this point. So we're going to have a brief intermission. If you have any questions, if you're not that hungry, I'm available to answer any questions of things that I've already covered. Food is in the back. There are different sandwiches, chips, sodas. There's a few different kinds, so you don't have to pay. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about the soda machine. It's back there. And when you come back or after I give a little brief time, you'll hear a couple presentations. All right? So at this point, it's an open time for you to eat, fellowship, network, meet each other, mix and mingle. There you have it. You don't have to.
Look, yeah, thanks for the text. I said, text me about this event. I had to go, I did my research, so I had to find it. So I just looked it up and I said, yeah, let me just, I went on your website to find out where the event was. Yeah, that's how I found it. That's how I found it. But nothing that good. That's my I mean, Siri texted me talking about, can you do my daughter hair tomorrow in case the girl don't shut up? So they're talking shit. I said, we should got ears Siri together.
Questions about anything?
So you guys, had the right there. Like half like he should have had a copy of the slide. No, we was late. Where yeah, I was on the other side and the gates was locked. And so then all of us came down and one of the girls opened the doorbell and we were standing there like, what? One girl walking around, she had no one. I was like, get upstairs.
Wonderful discussion.
And then she run the doorbell.
All about relationships.
You know, I was like, I don't have no. And I've been here before, but but then he posted something like he said he posted on Facebook. So what? Yeah. He didn't say the first child. He just said he did. I wanted to say he did. Wait, what is it? He did. Because I'm like, rodents going out. I'm like, okay. What say I ate already. I ate before I came. Help me, son. You okay?
I'm at Northeast Central Center. Yeah. Yeah. Are you in the field? Oh, okay. Great. I might have a couple comments.
Hey, babies, how are you? How long you been doing this?
I've been doing this for a while, but more specifically since I graduated my program. Usually for a color, I went to Chestnut Hill, but I'm teaching at Midtown. That was my bad. It's but I can send it to you. Yeah, I can. Okay. This one just you want to send it? Oh, okay. I can email it out. On City Line Avenue? Yeah, I'll update out
Do they have psychology?
Yeah, they have a site for that's the one I read. Oh, okay. So it's doctor of clinical psychology.
I'll look at it.
Okay. No problem. Glad you came.
Thanks. Well, I told Shelly to tell me she never emailed. So I'm not the I know we gotta be on here, so that's how I found it. I said, thanks, sir. She's like, oh God. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah. Man, you know what? Yeah, I'll make you a copy.
But I can email it out. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I can email it. I can also send it out either way.